What's up, YouTube? New video here. Why trying too hard pushes success further away? So it's the same goal. You have the same exact goal, yet there's two different paths and only one of them works. Lots of people make this mistake of, forcing it. I made this mistake multiple times. Let's get into it. So what happens here first is you want something really bad, right? You want something bad, whether it's your goal. For me, it was making the MLB. And then from there we go, what do you do with that want, right? That desire. There's two different paths. The first one is a force path, right? The second was the flow path. So let's go over what happens if you start forcing it. So you start gripping it obsessively, right? You're forcing every single rep. And then your brain treats the goal like your identity. So your brain starts to develop a very, very strong desire, and you kind of act like you can't live without it, right? After that, real stress response kicks in and your cortisol goes way up. Obviously, everybody knows you don't want your cortisol to go so sky high. And then from there, the only thing you really see is the outcome, right? You live, breathe, and die with it. And there are some positives to this, right? It makes you work harder. Just your work ethic in general is going to go really, really high. But again, like if all you see is the outcome, that's also a very, very bad thing. And we'll go into more depth in this very, very soon here. After that, once you only see the outcome, your energy reads as tense and desperate, and then you get further and further away and more anxious than before. So obviously the further and further you get away from this goal, you're just going to be more anxious, you're going to be more stressed, your cortisol is going to go higher. And the thing here is your energy reads as tense and desperate. And if your energy is starting to read as tense and desperate, you're pretty much signaling your brain, right, in your world, your reality, you're signaling it that you don't already have it. And so you're just going to get further and further away, right? The problem is so many people think that you need to try really, really hard to get to your goals, and that's just not the case. So let's go over the second one here, the flow path. So same thing, you want something bad, what do you do with that want? Instead of forcing it, you let it flow, right? So you stay locked in on effort, not outcome. A lot of people think, if you take this path, you're going to work less hard. You're going to care less. No, you're caring the same. It's just a different way of thinking. So you stay locked in on the effort, not the outcome. Here, right, we're constantly thinking about the outcome. For me, like I said, it was making the MLB, making Major League Baseball. I kept thinking about what is it going to be when I make the MLB? Oh, am I good enough to make the MLB? Instead of just constantly focusing on my effort. I was still giving a shit ton of effort and working really hard. It was just a different way of thinking. So the first step in the flow path is you're staying locked in on your effort, not the outcome. You understand and you know the outcome exists, right? But you're not putting so much pressure on yourself to attain it. And then from there, your nervous system stays regulated. There's no panic. You're not signaling your brain that you don't have it, right? You're not making your entire identity, right? You're doing things outside of that, right? From there, you can actually think clearly and adjust. You show up consistent instead of desperate, right? And then you're obviously, if you show up consistent instead of desperate, your energy will read as calm and grounded, which signifies, right? Which signals your brain and your mind and your reality that you already have that thing and that you're content without it, right? You're happy without it. Then from there, obviously, you get it usually right when you stop checking. So the difference is here, you're constantly thinking, do I have it? Do I have it? Do I have it? Here, you're understanding that you don't have it yet, but you're still taking the effort. You're working just as hard. Both of these paths, like I said, a lot of people think if you can't work hard if you take the flow path. And like I said, the biggest myth that people don't really understand is that they think they need to live, breathe, and die by the goal to achieve it. When in reality, you're literally just pushing it further away and you're becoming more anxious. And obviously that will bleed into other areas of your life. So here are the two paths, kind of explain. I put together something here so you can actually understand more about it. So the force path here, the more you force something, the more stressed your brain gets about it. The stress makes you tunnel vision on the result instead of the actual process, right? Like I was talking about. And that tension doesn't just stay in your head. It shows up in how you act, how you talk, and how you train. That energy pushes people and outcomes away instead of pulling them in. And so many people don't understand this last part, right? That energy pushes outcomes away. because they don't understand that energy is such a unique mechanism that, in reality, it does push people away because you're constantly stressing about it. You're putting your brain and your mind in a fight or flight, right? Compared to the flow path, you're putting in the same work, you're putting in the same reps and the same effort. The only difference is you're not gripping the outcome so hard, right? You're not treating the outcome, you're not treating the goal like your identity, right? Your brain isn't in stress mode when you're just flowing, right? So you can actually think straight and adjust when something's not working instead of spiraling, right? You show up consistent instead of desperate, and that's usually exactly when things start clicking for you. So when shit hits the fan, which it will, on either path, when shit hits the fan, if you are on the force path, you will spiral. You will spiral. Your energy, you're going to get even more desperate because you're desperate to begin with. And then the more and more you do that, the more stressed you become, right? The more cortisol you raise, and then the further away you get from your goal. And it's just a domino effect from there. You're never going to achieve it. Compared to the flow path, when shit hits the fan, right? Your brain isn't in stress mode. You're not acting like it's your identity. You already understand that you don't have it, but the difference is you're staying locked in on your effort. You're staying locked in on what you can control every single day. And so when shit hits the fan, you can adjust when something's not working instead of spiraling. And like I said, this is a very hard, I don't want to say it's a hard thing to understand. Why trying too hard pushes success further away. It's not a hard thing to understand. It's just that we as human beings, this is just how we're wired. We think that if we think so much about the thing that we desire, we think that if we make it us, we make it our identity, that we're going to achieve it faster and quicker than someone who is putting in the same work but aren't living, breathing, and dying by it. And it's actually the other way around. Whereas this person that's in it, we take two different people, the person in the flow path will always win. They're not because they're not working harder, they're working the same. It's just if you're on the force path, you think you're working harder. That's the difference. You take the force path, you think you're working harder because you're constantly thinking about the thing. It's who you are. And this is the biggest mistake I made, or one of the biggest mistakes mentally that I made on my path to Major League Baseball, is that I was obsessing over every single rep. And my brain was treating the goal like it was my identity, right? I was constantly stressed because whenever I had a bad outing, whenever stuff that I thought was supposed to go one way and the shit actually went the other way, I was in a fight or flight. My brain wasn't responding properly. And then this is just like I said, a domino effect from there. My energy was tense. I was desperate. I kept thinking, when am I going to get it? When am I going to get it? As opposed to just letting it flow, understanding that there will be mishaps. There will be mishaps. That doesn't mean work less hard. Like I said multiple times, it does not mean work less hard. It means work smart and understand that you can't control the outcome. But if you continue putting in the effort and you're not acting like the goal is your everything, is your identity, you will get there eventually. And this still happens to me, and this happens to everyone, but specifically I'm talking about myself now. This happens to me in my life right now. Like if you follow my journey, I've kind of failed on the 500-pound raw Zercher squat twice, and this is a part of why I haven't, lifted that weight yet in that exercise, is because I was trying so hard to get it. I kept obsessing over it. And the funny part is like before I hit my PR 470, when I failed it the week before I hit it, the night before I was constantly thinking about it. I was stressed. I couldn't sleep. And that's normal. Like adrenaline is a thing, right? That's real. I'm not saying adrenaline isn't real. I'm not saying your heart isn't going to beat. But it's the obsession over it. It's the kind of treating it as so important instead of flowing towards it. And so the week after I failed that 470 Zercher squat, I was still locked in. My preparation was still locked in, But the difference was my nervous system was regulated. There was no panic. There was no thinking about what happens if I didn't hit it, because I understood that was a possibility. I wasn't treating the 470-pound raw zercher squat like my identity. It wasn't my identity. It was just something that I was going to go do, right? It was something that I prepared for, that I was going to go do. And if I didn't hit it, whatever, next week I'll get it. As opposed to the week before when I failed it, it was more so, like 470 pounds. Like this is so important. I'm gonna let me hit this, right? So to close out, you're putting in the same effort. Might as well go on the flow path to put your mind at ease, to actually make sure all the work you're putting in reaps all the benefits that you deserve. Because if you're not on the flow path, you're just going to get further and further away from your goal. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, drop in lots of YouTube videos. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys later.